with Sherry is a bariatric podcast talking about weight loss surgery. I am not a licensed professional. Any views and or opinions expressed in the show are those of the speakers and do not reflect the bariatric community as a whole. Always reach out to a professional with any medical issues you are experiencing. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to another episode of Unzipped with Sherry. With yours truly, as always, I am Sherry. I am very excited for this episode today. We have Tanya, who's going to be on the guest. She is 8 months post-op from Gastric Bypass, and she and I have actually become very close friends over the last couple of months. We had met casually on TikTok in the bariatric community, and we had like this instant connection with one another. She's an amazing source for the bariatric community because she's extremely uplifting. She has an amazing heart, and her transformation just in the first 8 months is absolutely amazing. So I already know that you guys are going to fall in love with her just as much as I did, because not only is she working on her own journey, but she is already working on inspiring other people. We're going to talk all about it later today with her podcast, with ICE, with Inspire, Collaborate, Encourage. And she's on a mission just not to better herself, but to help other people better themselves, to be the best version of herself. And I think that's one of the reasons that she and I have connected so well, is because she almost has the MOBA mindset and just calls it something differently. So we both have like these very similar visions for how we view mindset and how we can take control of our life. So we have become like this little mini powerhouse, like working together. But like I said, you guys are going to love her just as much as I did. And Tanya, I hope you're ready, because we're about to get unzipped. We all have a story on how we got here, right? So for me, I used to be over 350 pounds until one day I made the single decision that I wanted change. Weight loss surgery has saved my life, and now I am here for you. I want to hear your story.
You know, the one that happened during that before and after picture? It's time to unzip. What's your story?
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Time for me to be in the hot seat.
I know. How does it feel?
It feels just fine. I'm excited.
All right, good answer. So for those of you who don't know, I was actually on Tanya's podcast. I've been on it twice now, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to be putting her information on here for her podcast. You can be able to see her information, and once you find out more about her, it's going to be very exciting. So I've already put her link in the bio, and then if you guys are listening on Spotify or iTunes, one of those places, I will make sure that I put the links to all of her information on there for you guys as well. So first and foremost, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And a fun little side fact is Tanya was actually supposed to be our guest for next week's episode. And we were going to do a special episode today with a couple of women. And spoiler alert, I'm not going to spoil it for you. It's going to be a very special episode. But just like with everything else, sometimes things shift and different, and schedules like don't work out. So I messaged Tanya and I said, hey, how would you like to do it a week earlier? And without even skipping a beat, she said, I'll be there. So I'm extremely grateful for you for being here tonight. And
I'm pretty flexible, so I'm good.
Great thing about working for yourself too, which
Absolutely.
we'll get into all of that. So for people who don't know Tanya just yet, one of the things that we like to do on the show, as you know, is we kind of like to have our origin story and where we began and how we got to the point where we were going to have surgery.
All right. I always thought I was heavy. Growing up, my mom was always, do you want to do Slim Fast, whatever. Looking back at pictures, I was not heavy at all. And so I'm like, all right. But that side of the family was always heavy. So I think that had something to do with it. After I had my son, I gained 85 pounds with him when I was pregnant with him. I found out I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. So between that, some depression, situational depression, things like that, I just kind of packed on the pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Lost some of it. I was like losing a few pounds a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got something chronic,
Yeah.
It does add up. But once I turned 50, a couple things happened. A, I turned 50. Um, and then B, we had a health crisis with my husband, and all the stress and everything kind of just like blew everything up in my body. I had some underlying autoimmune stuff going on, and then it just exploded from there. So, um, even though I was heavy, it kind of got worse. Then the rheumatoid arthritis and the fibromyalgia kicked in, and it just made it really uncomfortable to move. Towards the end, I was walking with a cane, and I was like negotiating with myself all the time. Can I make it home before I have to go to the bathroom? Because in our store, you have to go all the way to the back of the store, which is about a city block, and then upstairs. Well, at the end, I'm like, there's no way. We moved my bedroom downstairs because I was just in so much pain, and it was a safety concern. So, yeah.
So how long did you guys sleep separately like that?
We we actually have slept separately for years because he used to be a paramedic, and the radio would be bothersome.
Got it.
Once he retired, we were just in our comfort zone of having our own space, and we each
take. And you just got used to it.
Yeah. So we still have a really good marriage and stuff. It works better. We would both snore. So now we both have CPAP machines. I'm non-compliant because that's gotten much better for me.
Right.
Haven't been told you can give it up yet. I just haven't used it for a long time, but he still uses his. And it just has made things, as far as getting good sleep, we don't bother one another.
So. Which is good, and I'm kind of glad that my husband's not watching this episode because he's going to be really pushing to have separate rooms.
Hey, Bruni.
Hey, Bruni. Side note, we need to get Bruni on the show too. I'm going to make it happen.
Yes, we do.
And when it comes, so with PCOS that people don't know, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is caused by little cysts that you get in your ovaries that can burst. And one of the common side effects of having this syndrome is the inability to lose weight. You can often gain weight. It messes up with your hormone levels. So when you have all of that stacked against you, that was something that I had once been diagnosed with when I was younger too. And in hindsight, it made sense why like you're busting your ass and you're doing everything, but physically it is preventing the weight from coming off for whatever reason. Yeah. And what happens as a result, the more weight that you are gaining, you are now taking on other health concerns, and then your knees start hurting, and then you start getting inflammation, and then and it becomes like this avalanche of pain. So I'm curious for you, like at what point was your turning point where you kind of just decided one day enough was enough, I can't do this anymore?
I had actually hurt my knee just by walking into the house. I heard this giant pop, and it was not good. So I went for an MRI, and the orthopedic surgeon, like some surgeons can be, was very narcissistic and was like, yeah, you need a knee replacement, but I won't touch you. And I'm like, okay. He goes, well, your weight and your age. And I'm like, and by that time I had it I had become very good at advocating for myself. And if you're going to be a jerk to me, I'm going to give it back to you in probably a nicer way. But I think it was like, what exactly do you want me to do? Because I don't eat crap all the time. By this time I had like really cut everything out. Yeah, I occasionally have soda, but I switched to diet. I used to do CrossFit. I used to be very active, all these things. I said, but I'm walking with a cane because I physically can't do life like this. And he just sat there and was like, huge eyes, because I don't think doctors in authority are used to people coming back at them. But I learned when Jay was having his health stuff that sometimes they need to be put into their place, and sometimes the doctor isn't the right one for the case.
No, and here's my personal thought is I do think that we as society, we put them on a pedestal almost in a godlike sense because they're the ones who are going to heal us and to fix us. So oftentimes our first reaction is to let's just listen to every single thing that they say, and whatever they do, we're going to do it. But I do think oftentimes over the years, if you see certain patterns, like, yes, I get it. You can kind of make like these preconceived notions or whatever, but I think there's a stigma even amongst doctors in the obesity world, where your first response is put the fork down and lose weight. And like it's almost like you're fat, and that's what it is. Like your knees hurt, it's because you're fat. Your head, you're having headaches, there's fat in your brain. It's like it's always like it's just a quick fix, and there's not as much care anymore to really delve into the root of the problem. Like I personally feel a lot of things are just often masked. Like, oh, you have a headache, take some Tylenol. Oh, your knee's hurting. Okay, let me prescribe you this medic. It's just constantly prescribing things and not getting to the root of it. I had knee problems at 18. My doctor said I was fat, and then he made me cry. I know people who don't think I have emotions, like it happens. That's probably why I don't cry anymore. But he physically made me cry in the office because he called me fat. And then instead of like trying to figure out what was causing my knee problems, I walked out with a prescription for Vicodin and Prozac because apparently I'm depressed because I cried in his office, and nothing ever got fixed. So I don't think it's I don't think it's bad to say that. I just personally believe that yes, I agree that doctors do need to be put in their place, and you have to advocate for yourself.
Mm-hmm. He then came back, once he was like done being shocked. He goes, well, I don't want to offend you any further. And I'm like, that ship has sailed. So tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, have you ever considered bariatric surgery? I'm like, I would love to talk to somebody about bariatric surgery. I don't know how the process works. I know that years ago it was really hard to get into. I don't want anything to do with the lap band. And he goes, well, and then he started explaining a little bit of how Mayo does it. And then he gave me the referral, but I will never go back to him again, ever. Because if I do, it'll be to say, you need to be kinder to all of your patients. Exactly. So I'm thankful that he did write the referral. I could have gotten the referral from my primary though too, if I was, went to see him. But once I got into the bariatric program, it's been amazing. The program through Mayo in Mankato, everyone has been top notch, and they have the whole program so seamlessly put together that it's simply amazing.
And I'm curious, in the place that you go to, what was their program like? Did they have like much for pre-op and post-op care as far as like mental health or therapy options or resources?
Yep. I had already been in therapy. I put myself in way before this ever even was an idea, because I had 3 deaths within a very short period of time, and I couldn't deal.
Yeah.
I did see the bariatric psychologist for, I think it was like 6 times.
Really?
Yeah. It was, different things, because you had to do these assignments and things like that. It might not have been 6. It might have just, I'm not sure, but we had to go through physical therapy to be evaluated on how our fitness was then, and like goals, and to get like proper training if you had never like lifted any weights or done any exercise, which I had, but it was still through it. And so then the dietitian, and that was, all really good. Met with the surgeon a couple times, plus her PA. And then after the fact, I ended up in the hospital a couple times, and some of it was general surgery, but I was still under their care because my surgeon is also a general surgeon.
Oh, okay.
But I still have access to the dietitian whenever I need, and I still have appointments. I can go back to the bariatric psychologist if I want to, but they were also fine with me staying with my therapist. And I'm like, I'm fine with my therapist, because I knew that she was capable of helping me with like any body dysmorphia or whatever, and we have a really good relationship. So really,
and I think it does help in like your case, because you were already working through other issues. There, whether or not you knew it, other things are going to come up along the way that are going to be like, directly related to that, and to have somebody who's already very knowledgeable in your past and how you deal with things, I think that's the best thing for you.
Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate of, if your program doesn't require therapy, I'm a huge advocate for you doing therapy on your own, because there's such mental things. Like sometimes I talk to Hannah, I know the right answer, but I need to talk it out and like be told that you're thinking the right way, or how about you look at it from this point of view, type of thing. And so she has really, really helped. And I will continue going to her for as long as I need. I go every 2 weeks now, and it's via Zoom. So I didn't want to go to anyone in my town because I'm from a small town, and no one really was like, it wasn't odd by anyone. So I called my insurance, and anyone can do this. Call your insurance and say, hey, I want a list of the telehealth options that are able to be done through my insurance. And I got a whole list. Pick one.
Which, that makes me crazy. Like, people who live in smaller towns where they say like everybody knows everybody or everybody knows everybody's business, and I'm like, I'm born and raised in LA, and like we can live somewhere for 10 years and still never know who the next door neighbors are. Like we're just different. Crystal brings up a good comment, that it's amazing that you put so much towards your mental health. It's so important. Do you think that it was a game changer for you post-op? Like, were you mentally prepared for the surgery?
Yeah, I was. And I think it helped with, I did have a couple of things happen, and a couple of them were not gastric bypass related, but I probably wouldn't have recognized them had I not been so hyper aware of what was going on in my body. But the kidney stone was. So just like, it helped me to get ready for, like, if something were to happen that wasn't
right
type thing.
Was the kidney stone post-op?
Yeah.
Okay.
I ended up being very dehydrated off and on and had to go for infusions because I had diverticulitis that resulted in a colon perf. So, well, the first thing was, because I have inflammatory diseases, my intestines weren't releasing the inflammation, so I had a bowel blockage. So I ended up in the hospital for that. And then I had the colon perforation. And
okay, wait, it doesn't come in little small pains on the left side, does it?
No.
Okay. I didn't want to Google it.
Just monitor that. It was a very distinct pain. And the thing is, prior to surgery, I would have ignored it. I would have went and taken a nap. I was in so much pain from head to toe. I would have ignored it. The colon perforation could have been fatal had I let it
go. Really? Okay.
Because it ends up leaking into your body and you become septic.
Got it.
So it's a pretty big deal. But it wasn't gastric bypass related. It was just timing. You know, Becky told me, she's like, if you wouldn't have had the surgery, I firmly believe that you would probably be gone.
See, isn't that crazy? Because before I had surgery, I probably had undiagnosed IBS my entire life. My stomach was sick 24/7. So when it's always sick, you don't notice like individual things or whatever, and that you could have easily have had something happen and had no clue, thinking it was just no different than any other day, and could have had something very serious happen.
Well, the thing is, by the time I ended up having surgery, I had chronic pain 24/7.
Right.
So you're thinking it's the thing. It's like an everyday thing. It's just you don't recognize yourself out of it.
Yeah.
So now I'm better at recognizing those things. The other thing that I started doing is tapping meditations with a couple of other ladies. So we do it 3 times a week. And I also have the app. So I do tapping meditations. And I started doing meditations to learn how to breathe. So when I did have to have procedures or anything, I could breathe through them. One nurse, I remember, she goes, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure. She goes, what were you doing during the procedure? Because your breathing pattern didn't change. I'm like, I was counting. She goes, I wish more patients would do that. Because it kind of just helps me with any anxiety that I might be having, because I'm anticipating the pain, and it's just helpful. So my husband tends to call it my hoodoo voodoo, but it works for me. So
like, I'm used to that. Like, people don't know this about me, but I'm a certified hypnotherapist.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I got certified because my mom was a certified hypnotherapist, and she was had gotten certified in being able to teach it or train like other ones. So I did it, and I never understood like how important breathing was, or how, like, you know, like, you're so nice when you're having a panic attack or you're like in the middle of the stress and people are like, just breathe, and you're like, that's not what you want to hear. And then when you realize, like, oh, if you just breathe properly, you can like slow it down or whatever. And I used to think that was so fascinating, which is why and we're going to get into it a little bit. I think the training that I had in learning about hypnotherapy and how the subconscious brain works, and how our self-talk is more damaging than outside talk, and how like our body picks up, subconscious cues and sounds and things or whatever, that I think that's what really was probably the catalyst over the years that kind of eventually turned into like the MOBA mindset or whatever.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting that it kind of can coincides with the choose mindset and everything like that.
Mhm.
So we're gonna get into that. Don't you guys worry. But I'm curious, like with your husband,
Mhm.
obviously he was concerned, because your weight was a concern and your health was a concern. Was he fully on board with the surgery, or did he have reservations?
Oh, he was fully on board. We
Really?
went when the kids were younger to a seminar about lap band, and they talked about gastric bypass and stuff too. But at that point in time, it freaked me out so much to think of anyone like rearranging my insides,
Yes.
and I wasn't ready. And lap band was so new that I'm like, And I know people who have had lap band that, some of them have done very well, but the more people I know have either had regain,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them have scar tissue. I have a friend that was revised to bypass, and her surgery took a long time because there was so much scar tissue that encompassed the band, from what I understand. And that just sounds terrifying to me.
Right.
And by the time I decided to have it, I was in such a bad state physically. And even though I was, I always did my best to be positive and stuff like that, I wasn't a happy human. And I knew that.
Right.
I didn't want to be around myself. So how could I expect anyone else to want to be around me?
Yeah.
And so by the time it ended up, I was ready. I'm like, I'm ready to take my life back. I want Jay and I to, be able to do things without, losing the rest of our lives.
Right. And what's funny is like, with you specifically, I was scrolling. You're probably going to tell me this was yesterday, and maybe it was yesterday. For me, it seems like it was 4 or 5 days ago. But I was scrolling, and I don't know why. It was an old video of yours. Oh, that's what it was. I had saved videos, and I was going through saved videos for social media content and stuff. And one of your videos had popped up, and you look like a completely different person. And I'm like, I've only known you a few months, and I couldn't believe how much of a difference was in your face. But more so, you were on a live that morning or whatever it was, and you literally just had like the biggest smile on your face. And you're somebody, and because we've talked, like you've always been positive. And I was always nauseatingly positive, like to the point where people would get annoyed. Like sometimes you can have a bad day, and I'm like, no, we're gonna go and we're gonna work through it. And like, but as all the times as I was smiling in every pictures, I was dying inside. And
Mm-hmm.
it was often like it was like you just put up a good front because you want them to feel better about their day. But it
Mm-hmm.
was such a, I don't want to say a fake smile, but it was a forced smile to have like this almost like fake it till you make it. Like if I just be positive, it's going to get better. It's such a difference in the feeling. And now I can see it in other people. You
Mm-hmm.
can see when you're smiling because it's a genuine reaction, and you're smiling because you're trying to make somebody else smile, even if you're not truly feeling it. And you can almost see such a difference in it. It's very subtle though.
I can go back, and actually, it's interesting. Since coming back from Chicago, the prominent thing that I get told is your smile now reaches your eyes. It's like I always tried. I always made the supreme effort to be positive and be there for everyone else. But towards the end, it was just bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, like fall asleep in the chair every night because I was that exhausted. And now things are easier. I can do the MOBA challenges. They when I first started them, they were awful because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do as much as everyone else, but I'm finding that I'm doing just as much. Or if I can't do everything, I'm fine with that because I'm in a totally different place, and I want everyone to know that you don't have to keep up with everyone else.
No.
You can do what you do, and in small doses of of intentional movement add up. I
Yeah.
am living proof of that. Mother's Day weekend, I did a 5K and I suffered all week. I've been doing almost 5Ks the last couple of weeks, and they're not necessarily easy,
Right.
but they're so much better and so much
It's not
easier.
as daunting
Right.
or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I read this, but when I was doing the 75 hard last year, you have to read 10 pages of a book like every single day. And that's not my favorite thing to do. And I felt sometimes that was more of the chore, 10 pages, than doing a 45-minute workout because I was able to beast that no problem. But what was it? Oh, now that's going to Atomic Habits. That's what
Oh
the
yeah.
book was called. And somebody had recommended to me. And what I loved about it was this concept that you don't have to do 0 to 100. Sometimes it's like literally making a 1% change. Um, and he had given this amazing example with like cyclists, and you can't physically change your bikes or whatever to cheat in like races or whatever. But there was something that he was able to do, and it was literally like the tiniest, most minuscule change. And at first, it didn't seem like it did anything, but then over time, it increased the cyclist's time leaps and bounds over the course of a while. And he says sometimes you just make a 1% tweak, which literally seems so minuscule and ridiculous. You're like, okay, this is almost too fucking easy. And they're like, wait, just do it. And you do it every single day. And it was kind of, and like even in watching you with like the MOBA challenges, there was things in the beginning when I was doing the squats, people who watched me, I was squatting from a chair because my knees are still, even all these years later, I did not work out like everybody else in the beginning. I stuck to my walks and maybe swimming here and there, but I was never actively in the gym. So I never worked my muscles. So even all these, I still have knee issues and I still have back issues. And then even especially since my back went out last year, you're over babying it because you don't want to make it worse or whatever. So when it came to squats, I had told my trainer my goal by December of last year, I just want to do one squat, like one real squat without a chair or without whatever. And I didn't even realize this. We were doing these challenges for so long that somebody on the video on the live said, "You're not using a chair." And I was like, "What?" And it didn't occur to me the chair, I had moved the chair the night before for something else, totally wasn't even thinking about it. And all it was just doing these little things consistently for so long, it became this new atomic habit or whatever. And that's one of the things that okay, so I'm really excited about your journey personally, is one, because you and I are very like-minded people. And I see a lot of myself in you from the beginning. Like you're still very positive going in, and you're part of the exciting NSVs, like where everything is like so new and fresh. And I was like, I kind of miss that a little bit. So I feel like I'm living vicariously through you. But I also love that you're on this like similar trajectory that I was, but you're an improved trajectory than I was then, because you're starting to incorporate fitness early on. You or like I've always had this quote unquote MOBA mindset. It just didn't have a name at the time. So now over years, I've been able to formulate my thoughts and how I want to, tackle certain things or whatever. But I feel like you've already started within the first year. So I'm just like, I'm kind of jelly that I can already see like when you're going to hit your 8-year mark, or when I'm going to be 9 years in a couple months, when you hit your 9-year mark, I'm already excited. Like, where the fuck is this girl going to go? Because she's already there this early on.
And I want, not that everyone has to go up on panel.
No.
I think that for me, putting myself out there in a situation that was highly uncomfortable, doing a fitness challenge, was ultimately really good for me. And I'm hoping that it shows others that you don't have to be that far along in your journey to put yourself out there. I know a lot of people are shocked that I post the pictures in my sports bra and shorts. It's me. This is what I'm working with. And the pictures are what helped me the most. You sent me that video yesterday and then told me to go look in the mirror, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And the changes, for whatever reason, since Chicago have been happening really quickly the last, few weeks, however long that's been. And I dropped those however many short sizes when I messaged you at Kohl's. And so a lot of that, and I know that that's not sustainable to keep that pace up,
Right.
but it's nice to have that little stream of changes. And then if I, stall out for a little bit so my body can catch
Right.
up, then that will be fine. And I wish more people would think like that and not get so um crazy is not a good word, but that's what I got right now.
Obsessive.
Um, yeah, about the scales not moving or whatever. Not to take those feelings away, but sometimes if you just relax about it and keep doing what you need to do, it's gonna come.
Yeah.
It's gonna
I
come.
think the hardest part for people is people think that your weight loss success is mostly gauged from a scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that we can switch that narrative. It's not based on the scale. Yes, your doctor's going to use your scale as a gauge,
Right.
like, or whatever. But I mean, I don't even know if Bobby's still listening, but Bobby, you can attest that you can eat more calories
Mm-hmm.
and the scale can move, or you can eat less calories and the scale could go up. Like, your body's always changing. But not only that, when you start incorporating exercise, if you didn't drink enough water in a particular day, if you ate one food that has more sodium than usual, like, your body is always changing. You can't base it on the scale. And that's what, and like, I'm trying to help like rewrite that for people, because
Mm-hmm.
when I had surgery, I got down to 173. That was consistently for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I stayed for like 6 months. Then I had a nervous breakdown. I gained 50 pounds from medication. And then last year, when I was at 183, or 10 or 15 pounds heavier than I used to be, I'm fitting into the same jeans. And there was even, I fit into a size 8 in one pair of jeans. So it counted for that day. I fit into a size 8 that one day. But in my head, this doesn't make sense because I'm 15 pounds heavier than I was. But it's because the scale is not the gauge. Over time, your body's shifting. I was working out now, so now you're building muscle, or different parts
Yeah.
in your body are going to lose weight in different places or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should be like taking measurements like every week or anything, but I took measurements like once a month, and then I weighed myself once a week for a while. And then I think it's okay if you get to your goal and you're maintaining, as long as it's not overly obsessive. I don't care if people weigh themselves every day. I generally weigh myself every morning to see where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
as long as it doesn't get obsessive, because
Yeah.
sometimes you can get a little obsessive with it when you're not moving. But I also think that people do not understand how much stress plays a role
Yes.
in preventing weight loss. And I heard from multiple people after Chicago that stalls were being broken and things were shifting. And my heart tells me a lot of people had their cups filled over the weekend, and a lot of
Absolutely.
people, had a lot of stress release from them. They were on this little mini vacation. They made amazing contacts. Like, their stress was released, and your body was able to, like, you're holding on to all of this shit. And even it's because you're inside your head, because like the thing is coming up and you're so stressed and you're so anxious. And then like you have this amazing time, and then, oh my God, the scale starts. And for me, I broke a little stall right after Chicago.
Yep. It's amazing what your mindset and your mental health can do to play into that. I know for me, having asked Val if I could come hang out with you guys prior was the scariest thing, but also the best thing that I did, because Chicago was wonderful. But I think that going to Val's first just cemented and let me really get to know all of you. And so now that's just
Yeah.
wonderful.
And
And
I'm not to cut you off. I just wanted to acknowledge Crystal's comment about how she loved how we were talking one day about not to trust the scale. Because I'm going to be honest, my scale has not moved probably in 6 months. I have been stuck at 190 or 191, or today was 189. Like, those 2 pounds, it has not changed in months. But I see a difference in my face. I've
oh,
seen
absolutely.
I see a difference in my legs. So I see physical
Mhm.
differences, and like, it fucks with your head because you're like, this doesn't make sense. The scale's not moving,
Yeah.
but it's a further proof. Don't throw it away. It costs money. Don't focus solely your success based on the scale. And then Beth wanted to add that she loved us and the stress was relieved. The stress was relieved.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The only time I've, and on just full transparency here, is I was obsessing about the scale is I was waiting to hit that 100 pounds down mark. So I was weighing every day.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I typically, like I used to do my weigh in Wednesday videos every week like clockwork. And I don't do them much anymore. But I did do one today just because I was surprised that
Right.
I dropped 5 pounds in 2 weeks because that's not the normal for me anymore. Um, so I was like, oh, okay, now it's moving, but I'm also out taking longer walks. I'm doing the MOBA challenge. Really trying to be. I'm trying to choose intention with everything. And some days I make it, and some days I fail. Today I either have to start really chugging water, or I'm not going to meet my water goal. Um, and that's okay. Then I have to give myself some grace too. And then tomorrow's a new day.
Okay, so I remember in January is when I did the final phase of the 75 hard, and
Mhm.
I don't want to say I did not make the mistake. I made a post about, does anybody else want to do a challenge with me? You can do your own challenge. I said, but I'm going to do, because I was like, I want to finish what I started. I want to do this challenge. It's going to be really hard. I was not prepared for the amount of people to respond and want to be a part of this challenge, which at the time was like, I created this whirlwind of anxiety where I was like, this was already going to be hard enough for myself. However, maybe because we're starting the new MOBA challenge on Saturday.
Mhm.
Um, with the push-up challenge, I'm wondering if we should add a couple tasks to it every day.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Maybe like a water goal, like at least X amount of water. If you hit more than that, fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe, I don't know, some people like negative reinforcement. Like maybe we should have some kind of a punishment if you don't do it or something. I don't know. I don't want to make it too intense for people. But anyways, it's not
I
about
think
that.
everyone should. I know we kind of do it now at the last step, what we choose to do, what we're going to do today to be better tomorrow, but maybe we need to have people choose a word for the day.
I like that too. Maybe we combine them both.
Yep.
I like that. So speaking of choose, nice segue. It's like you've hosted a show before on your own. um, tell us a little bit about what choose is.
Choose came about when my husband had his heart attack. He was in Texas. He had driven to Texas to do an event. I was in Minnesota. I get a phone call. Well, he had called me and said he wasn't feeling well, that he was going back to the hotel. My phone rings. It's his number. I'm like, hey, did you make it back to the hotel? And a strange man says, are you Tanya Glacier? Like, yeah. Your husband is being taken to whatever hospital. He wants to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And then I got off the phone with Jay, and it's dawning on me that this is pretty serious. And I'm like, do I need to find a way to Texas? He goes, yeah, you need to come now. Okay. Okay. So during that trip, long story short, we got to Texas. I drove to Minneapolis. Our son hopped on a plane with me, thank goodness. And then it was choose, okay, Tim, choose brave. I'm going to choose happy. I'm going to choose joy. And if I had to choose that every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes, every 30 seconds, that's what I did to keep me calm, because me freaking out wasn't going to do anyone, especially him, any good. And he was in, critical care and stuff like that. So he didn't need to see me falling apart. I had to take the lead in being the strong one, which was not my role in the relationship. So, and that's just stuck. I have found over the last couple of years, especially through the pandemic, I gravitate towards like-minded, positive people. I have a group in business that I'm in a mastermind with, and it just is nice because we can do the inspire each other, collaborate, encourage, because ICE came about during this time too. It was my way of channeling to take my mind off of what I was going through, and hopefully be able to put something positive out in the world. Because I think that if you put positive out, you get positive in return. I tend to stay away from drama because it doesn't do me any good. I have an empathetic heart, and I just, I will fall apart if I'm taking on too much of other people's junk. Not that I'm not willing to help, but
Right.
people also need to be willing to help themselves.
Agreed.
So that's how Choose came about, and it just is, it's stuck. um, I think it's very powerful, and it can help anyone who puts it into action, because sometimes I'll look at someone, I'm like, okay, what do you need to choose right now to make it through the next little bit? And people now will realize, okay, I need to choose something, or she's not going to leave me alone.
Right. And that even, and like, I'm glad that you're saying something about that, because I've noticed sometimes when we do our challenges and we ask the question, what's something you can do today to better yourselves tomorrow? Some people will be like, oh, I'm going to try to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, well, how about we start being specific?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to constantly say, I wish I had more money, or I wish I had this, or
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have, okay, let's start breaking it down and being specific, because otherwise you're just throwing it out there with no real intention.
Right.
Like, if it falls into my lap today, then cool. No, how about instead of waiting for it to fall into your lap, you take your hand, you go out and fucking grab it or whatever, and you
Mm-hmm.
take what you want in a respectful way, of course,
Yep.
depending on what it is. But yes, make sure I put that out there. Just go take whatever you want.
I love it.
And so this was all before you had surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that just kind of carried over, and the initial couple months, the first couple months for me were hard, because I had these weird things going on that weren't necessarily surgery related, but were they surgery related?
Right.
Was I being a hypochondriac like my mom always was? Because you always worry about what your childhood has incorporated into you. And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm being a hypochondriac. I think I'm probably really need to be seen for X, Y, or Z. And sometimes getting that just a little bit of assurance was good, but a lot of times it was just like, okay, I'm going to choose to be brave and get through this. If I'm still having this pain in 10 minutes, then I'll make the phone call or the portal message to my team. Or is it just me being, having eaten one too many bites, or whatever? Because there's so much that can happen in those initial healing months, that you're like, is it really something? Is it not? But it gets me through business. It gets me through relationships, everything.
I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was just going to ask, were you active in social media during the recovery, like before your surgery, or did you come into like bariatric communities like long afterwards?
It wasn't long afterwards. I actually remember being in the hospital and like catching a couple of lives.
Okay.
It was very overwhelming. I wish that I would have thought about it prior. I think the people who come in and get to know and have the support of their other people, like during the surgery process, are eons ahead, that type of thing. But I came in after, and the first people I really remember seeing are like Bobby being on lives with people at you, things like that. And so it was almost like you guys were almost like famous to me type thing. I know. It was such a weird thing. But I was afraid to like type anything even in the comments. But I got, some support that way. But then I did. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start typing, asking questions. And then I popped up on a couple of lives here and there. And then after I was like really stable and got my complications out of the way, and then I started putting myself out there a little bit more.
Got it. And then, so do you think, in your opinion, do you think that social media helps or can hinder your personal views, like with your own personal success?
For me, it's helped. I think it
Okay.
very much depends on your outlook and how you are mentally as a person. If you are someone who strives to have positive, you're going to gravitate towards those people. If you gravitate, or if you've had a negative mindset or those tendencies, and you've not been getting like some therapy for that, you're going, and this is just my opinion, so don't, and I'm not a doctor. This is just what
I put a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. These are just our opinions. We are not doctors or professionals.
I think that it's easy to just repeat those patterns because you don't know anything.
I agree.
Because you're not trying to move forward and make those changes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they probably are like, oh my gosh, here she is again. Are you doing therapy? If you choose not to, that's fine. But it is something that I think everyone should at least try
Right.
because I've gotten so much out of it. What are you doing for exercise? What are you doing for what are you eating? Those types of things. It all adds up, and it's easy to mindlessly do things. Like
Yeah.
Jay pointed something out yesterday. I got really sick yesterday because he's like, you need to go back to 6 months ago when you were eating throughout the day really small instead of trying to do 3 meals. And I realized, okay, for efficiency's sake and time,
Right.
I'm back to that and I'm making myself sick because my stomach cannot handle it.
Right. And I do think it's important, and like, because you're more around that phase, which I would say is usually like around 8 months, between like 7 months to a year, where you can pretty much tolerate
Mm-hmm.
almost any food. Now, some people can have, some whatevers, but I think it's around this time that you don't realize you're kind of going into old habits where number one, you have so much more energy, you're doing so much more in the day that you forget, holy shit, I haven't eaten in 12 hours or something like that, and then you eat too fast or whatever and you get sick. And I think it's because, I don't think it's a cockiness or whatever, I just think that you're not as mindful, because in the beginning there's nothing else but being mindful over every fucking ounce that you have to drink. Like, you have to drink 4 to 6 ounces in an hour. And I would set timers on my timer. And so my life for months consumed with timer, ounce, And
Yeah,
then after a while, you don't need that anymore. And then after a while, now you're doing more stuff. And then so like the basics kind of not get thrown out the window, but you're not fixated on it like you were in the beginning.
exactly. Exactly. And it's easy to be like, oh, I'm just gonna have a little bit of that. And yeah, I can have a little bit here and there and I don't feel guilty about it. However, um, I have a sensitive pouch. So if I eat that one bite too many, I'm
You're
done.
done. Yeah.
And I do not like to dry heave. I do not like to throw up. It's like
No.
the bane of my existence. And so when I get like that, and yesterday was a really bad example. I mean, it was a bad day. From the time it happened until the time I went to bed, I didn't feel well.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're not doing this again.
Like me, I was not much of a drinker when I was younger because I was a very, very, very lightweight for a very, very heavy woman, which I never understood. So I would literally go from sober to throwing up, and like the idea of, I don't like that act so much. It makes me feel bad. It hurts my throat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think I threw up in the hospital from surgery because of the morphine. I pushed the button. I had a reaction. I threw up instantly. And throwing up with 3/4 of your stomach missing is not the most pleasant thing. So after having that experience, I'm like, I'm never going to throw up again for the rest of my life. And I can say that in almost 9 years, I can count on less than two hands. Maybe I might have hit the like one hand over or whatever, but less than two hands in 9 years that I have thrown up. And I think one is because I despise it so much, I would do whatever. And there's times where you feel that pressure and it can go in either direction. And I've
Mm-hmm.
actually gone outside at 11:30 at night before to walk it off because I was like, I'm not going to the toilet. It's not happening. Like, I refuse to do that. Or like I would physically get up, or like I would do whatever I could do just to get past it or whatever. Because I was like, no, this is not an option.
It's another really good thing for breathing because sometimes I can breathe through it. Um,
Oh,
if I'm not in a place where I can walk it off, and usually like yesterday, like any physical movement, like even moving my head will send me into like that feeling. So I just want to be still and not
yeah.
move an ounce. And so then I will breathe and then until it gets past.
I'm going to ask you about the breathing thing because I know I don't know how to burp. My body does not burp, and this is even before surgery. I've always had gurglies, even pre-surgery. It's just been
Oh,
exasperated post-surgery. I've had people when I was younger being like, "Why are you your body making that sounds?" And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, just burp. And I'm like, I physically don't know how to burp. I've had people trying to sit and teach me and try to verbally explain the concept of like how a burp comes out of you, and I'm like, I can't do that. So for me, like when I feel that pressure, I can't just like Eric can like literally he'll lean forward to a certain angle and it just comes out, and I'm like, I wish I had your powers because I have to wait for the first gurgle to come, and if I can get the first gurgle to come, then I know, kind of like with like an earthquake and aftershocks, it's just kind of this little pressure that keeps gurgling out of you. But until that first gurgle comes, it is so uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I'm like, am I gonna have to throw up? And then I'm trying to walk, and then once the little, then I'm like, okay, I think we're on. Okay, we started the process. Like, we're gonna gurgle the shit out or whatever.
Now we're good. Literally, I learned it from an app called Balance, and actually it was free for a year because coming off of COVID, they really, everyone's mental health was like in the toilet. So they had like just some introductory ones that would teach you different techniques, breathing, counting, whatever. And it just is something that I will revert to. If I'm mad, I will sit and I'll count for a few minutes because I don't like being mad. I don't like being irritated.
Right. I like that.
So I try to take the pause. It doesn't always work. Just ask my husband, but
no, I like that.
He told me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I would love to do like an episode sometime, and maybe I'll have you come back at a later time, and maybe we can do like a tapping session and do like a breathing exercise and kind of show people like, you know, what works for you and stuff. And then so moving on to the next topic, because I can't believe it's almost an hour already, and
I know.
it goes by way too quick. So I want you to kind of delve a little bit into the ICE podcast, because your podcast is not specifically bariatric.
Nope.
So tell us a little bit about it.
I started out as kind of like an industry business thing because during the pandemic and when everything shut down, we didn't have anything else better to do than to have like we would have Zoom happy hours to get to know one another. There was a lot of bonding during that time with other decorators because I'm considered an apparel decorator, even though we do a lot of other things too. Shirts, graphic design, signs, banners, whatever. So I got to know a lot of people in the industry, and that's kind of how it started. And then I was asked to be on a podcast called Two Regular Guys. And this podcast has been around for like 10 years. It's kind of like a big deal. And so I was invited on to be on a women's panel.
Oh.
And I was so terrified, but I got on and I loved it. Jay was like, who are you? You don't like talking to people.
You got the bug.
And so I did a few podcasts, and then I'm like, I kind of want to do this. They use StreamYard. I'm going to get StreamYard. And so it became something that Jay and I did together. He would either do the hosting or I would, and the other one would produce. And we had our nurse practitioner on, who's now gone. She was one of the deaths, but of how she helped me figure out all of my medical stuff. She was there for me when he was in Texas and I called her. She stepped out of a professional hockey game to talk to me and like information. We had football teams, it's just been the gamut. And all those episodes are still out there, so you could see like our early stuff. I stopped doing it because I was miserable. I didn't want to be anything. I didn't want to draw attention to myself, and I had nothing to give at that point in time. But after being out a few months and being inspired by like you and Chaz and a few other people, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot again. My biggest issue is I really need to get a schedule together and like have my stuff. Like, I need to have my ducks in a row. They're all over the place. I don't have ducks, I have squirrels. And I just really enjoy it. So I did, my first one back was with Chaz, and it was on gratitude because he and I kind of like really resonated with the whole gratitude message. And then I've had you on and a few other people, and it's just something I get a lot out of having an organic conversation. Even on my podcast, I'm not highly scripted. My husband would be highly scripted.
Yeah, I'm not highly scripted.
So lost.
Yeah, I believe in, I personally like to have at least like have some kind of a structure or a game plan of what you're going to talk about, because I've had episodes where even with the structure, you are pulling teeth. And I get it, and especially in this concept, it's live, and people can get nervous
Mhm.
and whatever. So I want to have structure, but I do not want things scripted out. I want it to be organic and real. But because we're almost out of time, I had put a star on here, and I forgot that I wanted to talk to you about this on the show.
Okay.
So one of the things about Tanya and I is, we both have a podcast, we both do clothing, we both have brands, we have very similar parallel lives. And so people were probably thinking like, why the fuck are you working together? You're in direct competition with each other. But we're firm believers that there is room at the table for everyone, and it's
Mhm.
better for you guys to work together and collaborate and encourage and inspire each other, because there are people who will see my stuff and be like, it's not for me, and then see Tanya's stuff and be like, oh my God, I need to have this, and maybe vice versa. And then so we all bring something different.
Mhm.
But there was something that Tanya had told me once, that she was afraid of putting herself out there, and would sometimes often feel like you were not good enough to compete. And
Mhm.
so it's not that I want to put you in the hot seat to make you feel embarrassed, or whatever. It's because how many people out there, and I was the same way when it came to going onto a live or putting yourself out there. How
Mhm.
many of us have felt that we don't have enough value to present ourselves because there's other people out there in a similar field or in a similar body type or whatever. And because of our fear of that, we don't want to do anything.
Yeah, it's definitely yeah, it definitely is something that will bring you down if you let it. I have found, like, since I really got to know you guys at Wildcast and stuff, that I don't have that fear as much anymore. Something magical happened during those days, and so you're exactly right. Some somebody, well, some people might resonate more with MOBA because badassery and stuff like that, and some people might like the choose word better, whatever.
Right.
To me, they're so much alike. But I have just as much fun promoting your brand as I do my own.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna work on a mobile logo tonight.
No, you put yourself
Yes,
first.
yes. And I figured out collaboration is my love language. I
Yes.
had so much fun getting you and Becky together and seeing that work. We did the podcast with Ken, Misty, and Bruni,
Mhm.
and the two of us. Those things make me happy. They fill my cup, like Beth would say, it's the bucket filler.
Mhm.
And anytime that I can fill my cup or my bucket, I'm going to be able to help others out more. So I found I'm trying to go live more often by myself. Or else just say, hey, I'm going to go on. You want to come on with me? That type
Right.
of thing, because I do get a lot out of it. And I've been told enough now. It's funny how you have to be told. I've gotten enough messages from people saying, thank you for sharing your story from the beginning. Not everybody that's new is sure that they should share,
Right.
whatever. But I do have, it's not only bariatric, but the whole thing about being around positive, like-minded people, working on, my success action plan for my business and my life. And they all intertwine together for me. So if I
Mhm.
can do something in my business that I'm passionate about and offer up the chew stuff or the MOBA stuff or whatever, then I'm going to be further ahead.
Now, since we've last talked about the subject, do you still feel how you felt back then? Do you still feel that you are not good enough to compete?
No, I don't feel like that anymore.
Good
And
answer.
part of it is just putting myself out there. Part of it is therapy.
Mhm.
And part of it is I'm in a mastermind group where we actively work on ourselves and get over our fears. We set some stretch goals every couple of weeks and see how far we can go in doing those stretch goals to see what's going to move us
Yeah.
forward. and practicing gratitude. That's probably the one thing I haven't mentioned a lot is um, you need to be grateful for even small things. Say 5 things that you're grateful for every day and put them out in the world, and you're going to be grateful for other things too.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I want to throw it out there that if you are open to somebody that you're close to, like a friend or a family member, or whoever you can like talk about your issues with, if you ever bring up the fact that you feel that you're not good enough to compete, and if 6 months later you are still uttering the same thing, then you have become a product of your environment. And it
Yeah.
might be time to think outside or to venture outside of your current environment. And you want people who are going to lift you up and encourage you and support you and not be jealous of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had given me the same answer, I would have felt like that I failed. Like I'm not doing my job very well as a friend. Um,
Actually, Christine and Val are like these huge, larger than life personalities.
right.
Especially Christine, she'll tell you, she goes, I'm a lot.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was just being really quiet, but I was kind of like just soaking everything in. And I love the dynamic of the group because it's like the two Tanyas are more quiet, we're there, we're having fun, whatever. Val and Christine are like out there, and you're kind of like in the middle, coming back
Yeah.
and forth between us, kind of the the filling of the sandwich, I guess.
I'll take that. Like I'm like the adapter. Because I truly believe that I am a product of my environment. So if I hung out with Christine one on one, I channeled my inner Christine, and I realized I cannot keep up. Like I can't live my life like that. However, for the night, I had the best night of my life or whatever, channeling that energy. But I have just as much fun doing something crazy that I've never done before as I would having a very intimate conversation at 2 o'clock in the morning, and not having to do anything crazy. Like I truly, that's why I try to instill in other people, be a product of your environment. And if your environment is negative and toxic and it's constantly gossip or shit talking or whatever, then find an venture out, because once you come across people who are like-minded on the positives and are lifting you up and pulling you up out of your funk and pulling you into it and encouraging you, oh, you're afraid to go zip lining, okay, let's work on you mentally until you're getting on the fucking zip line. Like people who are pushing you into a forward direction instead of trying to keep you stagnant where you are.
Do things that make you uncomfortable because you're going to grow from them.
Yes.
I think I did, hit something when I'm like, okay, I'm going to message Val and say, can I come tag along? And I'm so glad I did that. If you have a chance to go meet anyone, either locally or whatever, do it. Absolutely do it 100%.
The worst thing is something's going to happen is somebody's going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does, depending on who the person, yeah, it might hurt your feelings or whatever, then you dust off and you move on or whatever. But if you can never stop giving up. There are people out there for you. Your people are out there, and there's a lot of good people that are there for everybody, not just and so just keep that in mind. And for those of you who are interested, number one, if you want to be a guest on the show, please feel free to always message me at info@sherryarcuria.com. You can get a copy of the book on there. You can also check out mobamentality.com for MOBA gear and the book. You can also, I've also put Tanya's website. Was this for the podcast, right?
I gave you for the Chew.
Oh no, I put Tanya's Chew store. It's here in the comments or whatever. And if you get, like I said, if you guys are watching from Spotify and stuff, I'll make sure that I put it in the comments of that episode as well. She has a lot of amazing products. She and I have collabed on, and so she has done stuff for MOBA. She is absolutely fucking amazing. And she's so amazing that on next week's episode, I'm not going to spill all the beans or give all the details, but we're going to have a special episode specifically designed for women. And we're going to have a couple women on, and we're going to talk about how the surgery can affect us mentally and emotionally and spiritually, how it has messed with our body dysmorphia, and what are some things that we have done to work on our own personal self-image and how we view ourselves from the inside out. And so I'm hoping it's going to be a very powerful episode. So I encourage you guys to make sure that you check that one out. And then before we leave, do you have any parting words for today?
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for everyone in the comments. I've been scanning. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch so I can see all the comments because it's hard to multitask. I want to pay attention, but it's you know,
I mean, spoiler alert, they were just loving on you.
I love it.
So for those of you guys who have been watching or listening at home, thank you so much for the continued support. I was just telling Tanya before we came on, I had been MIA for a little while because we took a hiatus between season 1 and season 2, and I did not have a show last week. But somehow you guys are coming and you guys are listening. Our listeners and downloads are growing. Our YouTube page is growing a little bit. So it's all because of you. And if we're going to have Tanya come back, I'm not even going to ask her. We're just assuming she's going to come back aside from next week. And we're going to probably, I don't know, we're probably going to have to do a 1-year follow up, see where you're at. So if people have questions for Tanya, you can always, send me an email, like I said, at info@cheerleader.com. I can put you guys two in together. She is on TikTok. She's on Facebook. She's on Instagram. She's on Instagram.
I am on Instagram. I'm bad about checking it, but I'm getting better.
All right, so maybe find her on TikTok or on Facebook is probably the most logical. So on that note, I hope that you guys all have the most amazing Wednesday today, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, depending on when you're listening to this episode at a later time. I'm hoping you're having the most amazing day today. And before you guys go to bed tonight, I hope you guys consider doing one thing today that is somehow going to better yourself tomorrow, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And then start letting us know in the comments, what is your choose word of the day? We're going to start a new challenge where we're going to do something every day, and we're going to have a new choose word of the day. Choose what you are going to do, be, see, feel, or did I mess that up, or is that pretty good?
Use it as often as you need it, because sometimes you have to choose it every 5 minutes.
I agree. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to choose to have my bucket completely filled today and have it carry on into tomorrow. And I'm going to be productive. And what is your choose word for today?
I'm choosing grace because I'm probably not going to finish my water, but I'm also choosing to go in tomorrow with intention.
I love that.
Yep.
So on that note, I hope you guys all have the most amazing week, and we will see you next time. And Tanya, thank you so much again for being here.